Testing for sound and audio. Testing, testing.
Hello, everybody. Can I just confirm, Wendy, that this is being recorded and the live stream is on? Is that a thumbs up? Great. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I have pleasure in opening the council briefing of the 6th of May 2025 at 6 p.m. and welcome all those in attendance. The City of Vincent would like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present, acknowledging that as the City of Vincent, we have a role to play in working towards reconciliation and justice for First Nations people. I note that all councillors are here, so there are no apologies and we don't have to worry about anyone being on leave of absence. Now, can I just please get an indication with hands? Are there any members of the public present who wish to speak? Okay, good. There's a number of you. Okay, so if you haven't been to a briefing at the City of Vincent before, what you need to do is you need to come forward, state your name and just the suburb that you reside in, and the agenda item that you wish to speak to tonight, the agenda item that's going to be for the for next week on the council. We do time to 3 minutes and it's going to be up on the screen, so you'll have an idea of when you're going to finish, but you will need to finish at 3 minutes, please. If you're going to speak on the same item as someone who's spoken before, we do ask that you maybe just acknowledge that you agree with something that someone has said, if that's what you believe, and add your points rather than needing to go over everything all over again. So the meeting is being live streamed, and if you don't want to appear on the live stream, please let us know at the beginning of your remarks and we can stop that. The summary of your remarks are going to be included in the minutes, and any responses, if they are required, will be in the agenda of the council meeting for next week. And the items that you've asked to speak on will be brought forward first. So we will talk about those first. A reminder, no decisions are going to be made at tonight's meeting. This is an opportunity to ask questions and to make some statements. So would anyone like to come forward, please, first? You just need to say your name and the suburb.
Raffaella, North Perth, agenda number 5.2. My name is Raffaella and I'm the owner of La Mortazza. 2 years ago, we began our journey by applying for a liquor license, followed by a change of use of trading hours application. Our vision has always been to open an authentic Italian cafe in Perth, a place that truly captures the spirit and warmth of Italian hospitality. To bring this dream to life, we respectfully request an extension of our trading hours until 9 p.m. Although we currently hold a small bar license, it was obtained solely to allow us to serve traditionally Italian aperitivi alongside small appetizers. We want to emphasize that we do not intend to operate as a small bar or pub in any form or way, now or in the future. Extending our trading hours is essential for us to complete our vision. With council support, La Mortazza would be able to offer coffee and breakfast in the morning, pasta and panini for lunch, aperitivi with appetizers in the late afternoon, and full menu of pizza and pasta for dinner. We sincerely hope the Council will take these two in consideration before making a final decision on our application. Our goal has always been and remain to be a true Italian cafe, not a bar or pub, and to contribute positively to the local community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Hey, who else would like to address the meeting, please? You just need to come straight forward.
Hi, my name is Patricia Sinclair and I'm from Grosvenor Road, and this is item 5.1 regarding the Airbnb. Western Australia is experiencing a rental crisis and there's plenty of short-term accommodation available in and around the city based in much more appropriate spots than in our residential street. And we've got a strong community. We're very respectful of one another. We live in a really good area where we look out for each other. And I don't think a revolving door of up to 8 people coming and going on short-term basis will add anything to the street whatsoever. I think that there'll be the potential for noise, more refuse, issues which we already have. And I really can't understand why we would need to have an Airbnb on a street like ours. It's not the right place for it. And I think that we should be looking at long-term rentals. There's lots of people out there who want to rent for the long term, and they're very welcome to come live beside us. We've got lots of others in the street who do the same and add something to our community. Otherwise, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors and Executive Officers. My name is Stan Genchol and I'm the landowner of 20 Grosvenor Road, Mount Morley. This statement is made in relation obviously 5.1, changing the approval of the land use to holiday house. This is a property that I grew up in. After my mother passed away, I purchased a home so that it could stay in the family, and is a place where my family can live in the future. We love this place. We have restored the house so that it is beautifully presented and is a place that families can enjoy. Whilst we are not living at the property, it is important to us that the house adds value to the streetscape and that we do not cause any disturbance, disruption or loss of amenity to our neighbours. We discussed with some of our neighbours our plan to use this property for short stay accommodation, and there were no objections made at that time. We have appointed a management company to ensure that we only allow respectful people to use the property. We have been operating the property for short stay over the past 3 months with no issues. Our adjacent neighbours have advised us verbally that they have had absolutely no issues with noise or any concern with the people staying at our house. We are at the property usually weekly, ensuring a high level of upkeep. I had the fortune of meeting 2 of our guests. One was from North Perth that stayed for 2 weeks due to an insurance repair on their property. And they were so grateful that such accommodation was available, otherwise they would have to go to a hotel with 2 adults and 3 children. On another occasion, we met a family that came from Broome to stay for a week. I hope this demonstrates to the council that my family home typically attracts families which value that location and are respectful of the surroundings. We look forward to welcoming all councillors to the house tomorrow at 5 p.m. to show them our family home and that the proposed use fits well with the surroundings of the property and particularly the town centre. I hope you see merit in having a short stay in such a location and vote for passing this proposal. Thank you for the opportunity to make this statement this evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Councillors and Executive Officers. My name is Claire McLean. I'm the Director of Plan Consultancy, acting on behalf of the landowner of 20 Grosvenor Road, Mount Lawley. This statement tonight is made in relation to item 5.1, which proposal seeks to approval to use the property as a holiday house. I'm speaking to respectfully seek the Council's support in overturning the officer recommendation at the upcoming Council meeting next week. And by doing that, granting approval for the use. I can advise that the property has been operating successfully and without issue over the last 90 days as registered unhosted short-term rental accommodation. There has not been any concern raised to my knowledge or complaint received in relation to noise or amenity impacts over this period of time. I can also advise the dwelling on this property is sufficiently separated from the neighbouring dwellings, contrary to what is suggested in the report. These properties contain the original dwellings forms, which have substantial setbacks to the common boundaries and large rear backyards. So this traditional layout does provide ample opportunity and flexibility for additional measures to be introduced if required. And so the matter of addressing any perceived noise or amenity issue is not reliant on the Code of Conduct and Management Plan, as has been suggested in the report. Now, further, the outdoor living areas, which are shown in figure 3 of the report, suggest that that area encompasses the entire backyard. And with respect, this is not accurate. An outdoor living area refers to a 20 square metre designated space on coded land of R40, which is usually designed to be located with direct access to the primary living area of the dwelling and requires 2/3 to be without permanent cover. There is no outdoor living area on the property or the adjacent properties, which is adjoining each other, as had been suggested in the report. Now, and finally, the dwelling does have a direct interface with the commercial area of Beaufort Street. When standing on the footpath in front of the dwelling and facing to the east, the commercial activities are clearly visible and directly accessible by walking a short distance to reach the eastern end of Grosvenor Road. It is also relevant to consider the interface at the rear of the land. When standing in Arnold Lane, facing east, you're looking directly at the entrance to Fresh Provisions and the cafe and all the other uses as part of the Alexander buildings. And so just to conclude, I am concerned about the accuracy of the administration's assessment. In the report, it is my view that there is more than sufficient planning reason to consider granting approval for the use on this residential zone land and in this particular location with reasonable conditions attached. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Hello, my name is Kate Hawker and I reside in Shenton Park. I'm here to address agenda item 5.1, 20 Grosvenor Road in Mount Lawley. I'm here also representing the management company who's been managing this property as a short stay rental over the last couple of months, which again has already been pointed out. We've had absolutely no issues with guests coming and going with the neighbours. I just really want to address this evening the guest vetting process, as we have quite strict guidelines that we follow in that vetting process. First of all, each guest has to have a government verified identification. They have to advise us of the purpose of their visit, and they also need to give us all the full names of all the guests staying. They've got to also give us a reason for their stay, and also confirm that they'll abide by all the house rules, which get provided to them at the time of their inquiry. They also have to confirm that there'll be no parties, gatherings or events at the premises and no unauthorised visitors. We also then check if they have reviews, we check those thoroughly and also check through social media with the full names that we've been provided. It is in our interest as well as a management company that we have good, respectful people staying at this property. We also, on our various platforms, turn off the instant book ability, which means that every single inquiry that comes through to us for people staying at this property, we have to go through this process before we accept any bookings. It's not an instant book process where we have no idea who's coming and going from this property. Putting these measures in place always makes quite a lot of difference to the kind of guests who come and stay, and things like minimum night stays, which are also included, so that we don't get those one-night stays, which you would get in a hotel or anyone who intends to do something that wouldn't be favourable to the area. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else want to come forward, or has everyone spoken who wishes to speak? You just need to come up to the microphone. So otherwise, I'll presume nobody else wishes to speak.
Hi everyone, Sean Ustrick, resident of North Perth. I'll be very quick, just a couple of comments on item 6.3 of the agenda in relation to the report on the proposed eco-zoning in the Leek Street and Alma Reserve. First comment, just mindful that the report commentary is a little bit misleading in the summary of the public comments by stating that the overall responses are in favour of eco-zoning. That's not actually the case for this specific reserve, with the location-specific feedback being 9 in favour and 9 against. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront. There appears to be a minor oversight or error on page 7, where it's referencing that one of the reasons why eco-zoning can go ahead is because there's other comparable parks within 500 metres. That's not the case. Hyde Park is 700 metres away with a major thoroughfare in the way. Same with Beatty Park, which is 800 metres away with another major thoroughfare. The Federation Gardens nearby is closer, but it's a somewhat restricted park with no dog access or kid-friendly facilities. Then last point just wanted to convey was a little bit unclear on page 12 with the recommended improvements to the reserve items that can improve it, but it's unclear whether they're going to be adopted in full. And we respectfully request that a plan is drawn up. Doesn't need to be a external commission of an architect or a placemaker or anything like that. It can be a PDF markup, but just something so there's clarity for the community as well as the council. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Louise Schneider, resident of Harold Street section between Vincent and Beaufort Streets, addressing agenda item 6.1. I would like to respectfully make the following comments to Council. The draft Beaufort Street Precinct Area Road Treatment Implementation Plan contains numerous suggestions to convert this section of Harold Street to a one-way eastbound conversion. It also contains suggestions to apply other traffic calming measures such as speed nodes. In my view, only implementation of a one-way system will alleviate the traffic issues. Both this council and the council led by the previous mayor have recognised the significant traffic issues faced by residents in this section of Harold Street. Council members should now be fully aware and informed of the unique aspects of this street, such as access from both Vincent and Beaufort Street and the ensuing traffic chaos, no abutting intersections in the length of the street, and no laneway access for residents. And the worst thing, use of the street as a rat run. All of this has been presented to and acknowledged by Council in the past. The need for traffic remediation has been recognised by both Main Roads and the City of Vincent as far back as 2021. This has been a live issue now for almost 4 years, and respectfully, in my view, a decision needs to be taken. Finally, the report mentions low-level community support. May I respectfully point out to Council, compared to others nearby, we're a tiny street with a very small number of rate-paying residents of the residential address of that section of Harold Street. Consequently, unlike others in the area, we will never be able to mobilise a large number of residents to either agree or disagree with council decisions. In fact, we originally petitioned the council as a street action group, as many of us felt as individuals when we approached council about this, we were ignored and we felt abandoned and not listened to. It is a fact acknowledged by council, this section of Harold Street is adversely impacted by traffic issues. I would like to request most respectfully to council that any strategy adopted by council regarding this issue is made on traffic mitigation engineering recommendations and not influenced by maybe louder voices we will never be able to match in our street. Thank you.
Suzanne Buslinger, resident of the section of Harold Street between Vincent and Beaufort Streets, Mount Lawley, addressing agenda item 6.1, and I strongly support Louise as my neighbour. I would like to state my support for the suggestions contained in the draft Beaufort Street Precinct Area Road Treatment Implementation Plan for this section of Harold Street to be altered to a one-way conversion. As a resident of this section of Harold Street, I feel this measure would help alleviate the ongoing traffic issues affecting the residents of my street on a daily basis. In my opinion, other traffic calming measures such as speed nodes will not be sufficient to reduce the ongoing traffic problems affecting my street. Thank you.
Evening. My name is Mark Schneider from Mount Lawley. I want to support the comments made by the previous two speakers. I'm a resident of Harold Street between Beaufort and Vincent Streets. I've read the council briefing draft dealing with the road safety implementation plan for the Beaufort Street precinct area. I strongly support the recommendation for a one-way conversion eastbound between Vincent and Beaufort Streets outlined in Table 8, Item 1.6. This is the only way to address the current problem. In April 2021, I was given the opportunity to attend the City of Vincent DAP meeting, voice my concerns regarding the application to develop the Beaufort on the corner of Beaufort and Harold Streets. My main concern was that a 600 patron venue was going to have a huge impact on traffic volume in Harold Street. In addition, the impact of the new Chalice apartments, which were yet to be built, but have now been built on the corner of Beaufort and Harold as well, was going to add to the problem. And this has certainly been the case. I was advised then that the Beaufort and Harold Street corner had been identified as a black spot area and would be dealt with within 18 months of that time with funding set aside by Main Roads. The problem of a large number of vehicles, often at speed, travelling up and down Harold Street, especially from the Beaufort Street entrance, is getting worse. As I'm sure you're aware, the location of a primary school in the street with regular pickup and drop-offs of small children only adds to a potentially dangerous environment. It would seem prudent to address the black spot issue on the corner of Beaufort and Harold Street by preventing vehicles from entering Harold Street from Beaufort. This would also deal with the traffic problem in Harold Street. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Dudley Meyer of Highgate, and I'm speaking on the same item, 6.1, Beaufort Street precinct traffic. I appreciate the work that's been done so far, but I do have some concerns with the report as far as it relates to my particular area around Chatsworth Road. Concerns relate to a minor technical issue, but more importantly, the way forward with engaging the community. I've got a minor concern with making St Albans Avenue one way. I understand the reasons, I appreciate it, but I'm afraid that it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that will garner enough opposition for people in our cell that the whole plan is killed. The concern relates to the fact that while journey lengths might be the same, people in our cell, so it's between William and Beaufort Street, who want to go to the southeast, forced down Bulwer Avenue, and people going to the northeast will be forced down Lincoln Street. Both those segments are next door to the primary school. So there might be some arcing up from the primary school community. Another alternative is people might start to use the laneways. So that's a minor concern. My main concern is about engaging the community. In most traffic management exercises, there are winners and losers. And the challenge is to convince the losers that the loss is either illusionary or minor, and that the overall net gain to the community is a positive. We saw in the Leek Street shambles, I call it, and the Norfolk Street fiasco, how things can go terribly wrong. With Norfolk Street, there were people who were probably potential winners, but they didn't want to change, and they were easily convinced by the naysayers in their community. They objected and potentially lost out. I'm concerned with the recommendations. Clause 2 is very good. It's engaging with the community. But Clause 3 is an issue. It basically says we'll following the community feedback, carry ahead with the design process on the one-way conversion for the 3 streets. But what's the point of engaging with the community when you've already committed to the outcome? Council members should be actively involved in the engagement, at least at managing it, if not participating in it. You shouldn't be leaving it to the staff with just these drop-in sessions. You should actively workshop the alternatives and present them to the community. We've seen how dumping reports and plans on the community without presenting a simple rationale just elicits negative responses. It's not good enough to expect residents to read through a 30-page, high-level technical document that just contains a lot of background with no alternatives or details. So the ball's in council's hands. I think you should get actually actively involved in the process rather than just handing it to the staff, and we end up with a process like the Norfolk Street shambles. Just another comment on 5.5, the heritage lists. Please don't use the double-page format. It's impossible to read when you're going through on a screen. It's difficult. Also, it doesn't make sense to have an overlap between the list and the survey. property should be on the survey and then move to the list or disappear, not appear on both. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to come forward and address the meeting with any items? Okay. All right then. So what's going to happen is those items which have been raised are going to come first, and so you're welcome to stay to listen to the responses in relation to that. So if there's no further questions, I close public question time at 6:25. Governance Coordinator, can you please confirm whether any statements have been received?
Through you, Mayor Simon, yes, we have received statements from Claire McLean of Perth in relation to item 5.1, questions and comments from Alex Yuchensky of North Perth in relation to item 5.2, and comments from Sean Eastry of North Perth in relation to item 6.3. These have been circulated to council members, and responses to any questions will be provided in the June council agenda.
Okay, CEO, can you please read out any declarations of interest which have been lodged?
Through you, Mayor Zaman, declarations have been received from Councillor Warren in relation to a financial interest for item 7.4 and event sponsorship. Interest being that Councillor Warner is General Manager of Revelation Perth International Film Festival, one of the events for which funding has been applied for. Councillor Warner is not seeking approval to participate in the debate, nor to remain in the chamber, nor to vote in the matter. Both Councillors Wallace and Alexander have declared financial interests in item 5.5, which is the advertising of the local heritage survey and amended heritage list. The interest is identical, being that both councillors own properties on the heritage list. Neither are seeking approval to participate in the debate, nor to remain in the chambers, nor vote in the matter. That's all for this evening.
So, councillors, can I please ask if there are any further conflicts of interest that people wish to declare? Okay. All right. So now we'll go around to the items that you would like to discuss. Councillor Warner.
5.1 and 5.3.
Councillor Wallace.
5.6, 6.2 and 8.3. Thank you, Mayor.
So, sorry, 5.6, 6.2 and
8.3.
8.3. Thank you. Councillor Lafont.
5.4, sorry, not that one.
Sorry, did you want 5.4 or not?
I wanted 5.3.
5.3.
6.1 and 6.4. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Castle, Councillor Greer, Councillor Alexander, Councillor Wolf.
5.4 and 7.4, please, Mayor.
Councillor Hallett. Okay. And I simply wanted to add in 6.3 and 7.5 because you all listed all the other ones that I wanted to do. Okay, so I'm just going to work out the agenda now.
Support me.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to move to 5.2, number 500 Fitzgerald Street, North Perth, proposed change of use from restaurant cafe to restaurant cafe and small bar. Okay. Are there any questions? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. On this one, I completely understand that parking remains to meet the deemed to comply standards, so it can't form part of our decision on the change of use application. But I just wanted to note that parking around this area, particularly at that intersection of Venn and Fitzgerald, has been a long-standing community concern. So I was just hoping to take up the opportunity in the briefing notes, please, if I could just request an update on where we were at in terms of the North Perth traffic study informing parking at that intersection, please, and promise not to take that into account. Thank you.
No worries, we'll include that in the briefing notes.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, I'm going to move on then. So the next item is 5.1, number 20 Grosvenor Road, Mount Lawley, proposed change of use from single house to holiday house. Are there any questions? Councillor Warner.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Our comments tonight said there have been no issues so far, which is a variation to what information we were supplied earlier. Can I get a comment on that?
Through Mayor Zamon, yes, so the land use commenced operation in late December last year when it registered on the STRA register. So it's operated for 84 nights out of the 90-day exemption since, I think that's slightly changed since we published our report. In that time, it did receive one complaint around the Christmas period that was addressed. We let the resident know that we had a live application, and we discussed with the applicant just to make sure that they were working with their management plans. Since then, we haven't had any other formal complaints about the current use. However, the community are aware that there is a live application. So concerns regarding the proposal have come through, or just queries on what the status is of the application is, but no other formal complaints since then.
Thank you. So this is currently operating as an exemption, and it's done 84 of the 90 nights it can do in 12 months. If this change to a holiday house is not approved, does that exemption, do they get another 12 months sort of, and 90 days starting again at the end of the year?
Through you, Mayor Zamon, so say if we weren't to support this application and they hit their 90 days, that would not reset until the end of December when their registration date lapses. So it's 90 days maximum in any 12-month period. So they would need to wait until then to recommence.
Are there any further questions in relation to this? Councillor Wolf.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one. The report suggests that a time-limited approval would not be considered appropriate for this one. I thought it just might be useful to talk through that if we could, please.
Through you, Mayor Zamon, yeah, sure. So essentially how we landed on that was really in respect to the context of the site and the locational criteria which the proposal doesn't meet, and really the concerns around, even for a short period, 12 months or 24 months, the incompatibility of the use, particularly outdoor living areas and noise associated with comings and goings, car parking and outdoor recreating for that sustained period of time. So in this instance, we didn't consider that it was even appropriate to consider a time-limited approval to kind of test it.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zamon. I also had that question, so that's excellent. But my question for the briefing notes, please, is there was some commentary around other Airbnbs that administration have approved that the applicant deems similar. I was just wondering if in the briefing notes we could get some more information on why those properties were deemed acceptable and this one, in this case, isn't.
Through you, Ms. Amon, I can provide some details in the briefing notes. I think it's just important for us to preface that each application is considered on its own merits, having regard to its own unique context and locational criteria. So we'll try and spell some of that out as to how that differentiated between them. But in terms of considering this proposal, we just need to remain focused on this specific context and how the use relates to that surrounding context as well. But yes, certainly.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. There was some commentary raised from the gallery about the definition and the size of the outdoor living area on the plans, and I'm just happy for this to be in the briefing notes. If you could provide some clarity on what that area covers and perhaps an understanding of why there's a difference of opinion.
Happy to provide that in the briefing notes.
Are there any further questions? I'm just going to get confirmation of my understanding. Can I, my understanding is that without a time limited approval, that if approval is given, then that's in perpetuity and runs with the land, regardless of owners and regardless of who is managing. Is that correct, or have I misunderstood that?
Yes, that's correct. If we were to approve it, there'd be two options: applying a time-limited approval or approving it in perpetuity, which we would likely put a condition of approval on there for them to meet the management measures within their management plan. So they would need to stick to those measures regardless if the owner's changed. But yes, it would be in perpetuity.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next item. So the next item is 6.3, response to petition Alma Leak Eco Zoning. Anyone got any questions in relation to this? Councillor Hallett.
Yeah, just wondering, in response to one of the comments from the gallery, is it possible for administration to consider updating the report to include a diagram of those additional items that were discussed?
Through the Mayor, Manager Parks is online, but I'm quite comfortable to suggest that we can include that as an attachment.
Councillor Wolfe.
Thank you, Mayor. Some of the community feedback that came through regarding Alma Leak was around the previous eco-zoning in 2017 of that southernmost section. Are we able to confirm whether we can have any future tidy-ups of that section as well, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, we did do a bit of a site visit to have a look at that area, and yes, there is some work that we can do on that, and we'd likely do it at the same time as doing the works for the other side.
Okay, are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. The next item is Draft Beaufort Street Precinct Area Road Safety Treatment Implementation Plan. Are there any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Hallett.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just had a similar thought about the item 3 in the motion around the wording and wondered if that was on purpose or perhaps just could be revisited in terms of the assumptive ahead, regardless of the outcome of community consultation.
But through the chair, that was the wording in the actual report, was it? Or the technical report?
Can I just, can I say that's okay? So can I just suggest that it says number 3, following community feedback supports administration in initiating the design process for the one-way conversions, etc. Perhaps a clearer proposal would be following community feedback and subject to majority community supports administration in. So if it was something along those lines, it would at least not, it would mean that you would need to be satisfied that there was majority. Sorry, no, sorry. Sorry, the CEO just wants to comment.
Through Mayor Zaman, we certainly do the community feedback, but the traffic safety proposals don't necessarily depend on having 51% support of those submissions received, because it gets quite difficult to understand the nature and type of that. So it's not necessarily a black and white vote from the community consultation. It's a council decision.
Councillor Hallett.
And administration suggests an alternate wording that doesn't incorporate the majority, because I agree that that's not appropriate to include.
But also that it looks as that actually has incorporated community feedback, because there might be some strong preferences.
Through the chair, yes, we can look at the wording, and we do consider community feedback. Just to emphasise, we have studied this area for the past 18 months, and we've got a comprehensive technical report, so the engineering justification stacks up, but absolutely can look at the rewording in that.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, sorry, I was shaking my head vigorously for the same reasons that the CEO pointed out, because I would not be comfortable locking council into one way or the other based on a straw poll. I guess my question in relation to this comes at it from a different angle. Can we have a little bit more clarity about what engage will look like?
Yes, through the chair, we have been working with residents around the Highgate area for on and off for a 2-year period. Just to remind Council, this was a black spot project on the corner of Harold Street and Beaufort Street that was pre-approved back in 2022 for delivery. We've taken the opportunity now to fully review through a precinct-wide analysis. Through that period, we've consulted with Harold Street residents and business owners extensively on treatment opportunities, and now we've sat with Main Roads, PTF, DOT, City of Perth and ourselves through this traffic analysis with ARAP as the consultants to do a wider precinct-wide study that details the 22 treatments that we propose over a 6-year period. And it is an implementation plan. It's high-level costed, and it meets what Council resolved to be met 12 months ago through that Council meeting back in 2024.
Sorry, if I can just add, the intent for clause 3 was to get permission to actually invest money into doing some designs, preliminary designs, so we can use them for consultation, not necessarily fully detailed, but getting there. Wasn't actually, and then being able to go to Main Roads then with those designs to say would they be likely to be supportive of funding for those projects based on the consultation, so we can use that design for both a consultation piece and consulting with Main Roads. It wouldn't be the intent that we would get necessarily approvals at that point, but we'd be hoping to be some way down the road should that approach be generally supported in a holistic way for traffic management.
Thank you. That helps, because my next question was really what is administration trying to achieve, and when will council next be engaged on this? So I am very happy for this to be considered in the week. I would request that some consideration in clause 2 be given to the word engage, referring to the IAP2 structure, and perhaps reflect exactly what we are doing. Are we going to consult? Are we going to inform? And the various levels. And then support is probably a little bit loaded in this context. So I think that recommendation could better reflect what administration wants to do as a result of the consultation before this comes back to council. Because if it is a council decision to actually do the work, that needs to be clear that administration is not just going to go ahead and do a whole lot of works in the area without coming back to council. I understand now that's not the intention, and that's probably just can be worded a bit better. Thank you.
Councillor LaFontaine.
Thank you, Mayor. First, some of the questions I think have already been answered. The other question I had is that the recommendation 2 mentions particular focus on residents of Harold and Chatsworth Street. Does that mean resident addressed community consultation forms, or like what does it mean to have particular focus?
Through the chair, the plan would be to focus on the 22 treatments throughout Highgate with all the community. Historically, when we looked at treatments that we were implementing, the impacts were on Harold Street and Chatsworth Road in particular. So we wanted just to emphasise that through these residents, that's going to be impacted on the change in one-way system. It will change the flow of traffic that we do through that process, consult and make sure they're heard, and through the detailed design, take the comments on board before we go to main roads with a detailed design for approval. That's what basically it means.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate the precinct-wide approach. Absolutely. In terms of, I think I'm just wondering whether there's going to be any differentiation in the community consultation as to whether it is all online for everyone, community, border community, or if there's going to be any differentiation with the particular residents on the one-way streets. Do they get a resident addressed community hard copy consultation form where we as council can look at the feedback and differentiate, or also look at what do the residents want and what do the border community want? Just a way to differentiate. Is that included in this, or is it the same consultation for everyone?
Thank you, through the chair. We'll add some notes around our intent in the briefing notes and look into what specific details there are. Given that we've had a fair bit of consultation around some sections of this study area because of earlier consultation, we've got a broader understanding of those, but we are specifically looking at the big picture consultation, but open to narrowing it down to specific, and the specific areas that would have interventions included to improve traffic. But essentially, we want people to look at it as a whole rather than just those individual projects. That's the key.
Yeah. Can I just confirm that option is resident addressed community consultation forms? That can be an option.
Through the chair, I have no reason why we can't consider direct mailing.
Thank you. And the consultants in their report, I was just wondering if they had provided an updated revision, which included Appendix A to C. They weren't attached. I was just wondering if you had received the appendix, if council could have a copy of that, please.
Through the chair, I can check and include in the briefing notes if it's available. It is a draft report, so obviously the final report will have everything included.
And the background information mentioned overlap between this study and the North Perth precinct. What are the boundaries, and could the overlap areas please be provided?
Through the chair, so just to be clear, the study with Highgate and Mount Lawley is really road safety focused. Obviously has elements on density infill requirements strategically focused on the future in regards to modelling. The North Perth Highgate study was more of a infill planning study, more strategic with road safety bolted on. So although there is that overlap on road safety projects, they are two different studies, but definitely from a modelling perspective, we're hoping to integrate traffic models that we can develop holistically into the future, and that's where the benefit to include Mount Lawley into that area, so we can see how traffic flows in and around the 3 different precincts, working off that base model that we will create.
All right. Yes, I just note that there are some sections of the precinct that have no treatments proposed, and I was just wondering if they were being considered in other precinct traffic plans. So thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, councillor, if you'd like to specifically identify the area to us, we'll be able to address those in the briefing note if you like.
Yes, there's Joel Terrace. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next item, and the next item is number 5.5, advertising of local heritage survey and amended heritage list. And I notice that both Councillor Wallace and Councillor Alexander have declared a financial conflict of interest. So if you're able to just grab a drink, we'll call you when we've dealt with this item. Thank you. Okay, so are there any questions in relation to this item? No. Okie dokie. Sorry, yes, Councillor LaFontaine. That's fine. Okay, well, we'll go get the two councillors and bring them back in. Thank you. Stretch your legs. Okay, so now move to item 5.3, number 188 Vincent Street, North Perth, proposed alterations and additions to place of worship. Councillor Warner, you had some questions.
Thank you. Apologies if I've missed this in the report. Basically, this comes down to the net loss of 15 bays at the place of worship. Will this have an impact on the community, as in, are we expecting then to have more parking because of for the facility taking up residential streets? Or are we expecting any sort of flow-on effect because of 15 bays being removed?
Through Mesamon, so there's currently an existing surplus of bays for the site, and they would be maintaining a 6-bay surplus. So they're removing 15, they're adding another 5 bays, and then they still keep a 6-bay surplus. So there's still sufficient parking for the use and the number of people they have attending in accordance with our non-residential parking policy.
Councillor LaFontaine, did you have some questions in relation to this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just needed some clarity. I was a bit confused with the car parking bays. So I was just wondering if you had the current number of car bays available now, and then what will be the number after the completion of the proposed works if it is approved? Thank you.
Through Mesamon, I'll provide that in the briefing notes.
Thank you.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. I just note that they're asking for discretion around canopy coverage of the car parking. I guess looking at the plans, it doesn't seem too difficult to me to introduce a few trees in the middle of the large empty car park. Did admin consider kind of trying to push that issue with them, bring them closer to deemed to comply?
Through Mesamon, yes. Given that the large car park, though, is existing, we only have the ability to require the planting of a tree where the new bays are proposed. So that's the 5 bays that kind of curve, and they're annotated in yellow on the proposed plans. So we've included the condition for the planting of a tree there, which is consistent with the species on site and has been supported by both our parks and our Heritage Council. But the ability for us to require additional planting in the broader car park isn't within the scope of this application.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you. Also on the tree coverage, I just had a question for what's in the report. We've got 30% of the proposed parking area and associated access would have canopy coverage. Is that 30% with the addition of the proposed tree? Or is that currently, and the tree would get us closer to 60?
Through you, Mesamon, no, that's with the condition tree. Essentially, the location that we've pinpointed for the tree to go is very specific in terms of some heritage considerations, as well as the species of the tree needing to be in keeping with the other species on site, but not wanting to provide too much canopy droppage or foliage of leaves and branches. So it's been quite a specific location that would still provide shade to cars that are parked, but not necessarily to cars driving through the access way. So that's the 30%.
Thank you. That was all.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, moving on to the next item. So the next item is 5.6, advertising of draft sustainable Vincent framework and enhanced environment strategy. Councillor Wallace, you had some questions in relation to this item.
I did, thank you, Mayor. Just had a couple of queries around some of the targets that have been set. So on page 33 of the document itself, there's the target to embed water-sensitive urban designs in all projects, and it goes on a little bit. I guess I was just wondering what the threshold is for what a project is with respect to our engineering and drainage works. Does that mean like all drainage, roadworks, that kind of stuff that the city does now will have water-sensitive urban design embedded, or is a project kind of like a major piece of infrastructure work?
Through you, Mesamon, we'll provide that through the briefing notes.
Thank you. On that same target, I think when setting a target, like a common good framework for a good target is to make it smart, specific, measurable, achievable, and it goes on a little bit as well. But I find that target a little bit general. Like I don't know how we're going to measure ourselves against that. I don't know what it's really seeking. Could you provide some, I guess, detail around that in the briefing notes, and potentially even a couple of alternatively worded targets with something that is more specific, measurable?
Through you, Mesamon, yes, we can do. Just to clarify, that's the one that's worded about embedding the water sensitive urban design.
I had a similar comment on page 37 of the document, the target protect and enhance the health of the Swan River, Hyde Park and Lake Munga. Again, I'm not sure how we'd be measuring ourselves on that, like how are we judging the health, how are we planning to enhance it? So if we just have a little bit more detail about that and consider rephrasing there as well. And I guess I just note, you know, like Munga's outside of the city of Vincent, I know we've got stormwater that feeds into it, but we've kind of like cut off a couple of Vincent wetlands, Smiths Lake in particular, and included an off-site one. So maybe have a look at that as well. And final comment that I think the index should be much higher in the document.
Noted.
Does anyone else have any questions in relation to this item? Okay, so now we'll move on to the next item, which is Beatty Park Reserve toilet block installation 6.2. Councillor Wallace, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just wondering about the proposed locations. I saw we went out for consultation on 2 locations that look almost identical to me. Was the northeast corner of the site considered a potential spot for the install of the toilet?
Mesamon, no, it wasn't where the previous toilet block was. No, it wasn't.
Why is that?
It was deemed that we were trying to put the location of the new toilet block with the playground as well, closer to the Beatty Park facility as well.
Very respectfully, I find the design really ugly, loveless and utilitarian. I guess we're being asked to pay $300K to install what appears as a donga in the middle of like a very highly visible area that's really highly trafficked. And I'm just super curious about if we could do any better in terms of the design, the amenity outcomes there. So I was hoping the city could maybe come back with a couple of examples, like a little cost sensitivity about like how much would have to be added to the budget in order to deliver like a better outcome. I guess there's some feedback, like I was excluded from debating it, but the new toilet that got put in at Birdwood Square, I think a year or so ago, is pretty heavily degraded for something of that age. It's rusting, it's dented, it's miscoloured, and I'm just concerned that, you know, while it seems like a cost-saving measure, that I can think in the long term we're losing out when we kind of put in those kind of things. Is that something that the city could do? Admin?
For you, Mesmon, yeah, certainly that's an option we can come back with. The current design that has been chosen obviously is dictated by the current budgets and service levels, but certainly, and also noting, I guess, the Banks Reserve went through the design review panel, so this too has also gone through the design review panel. Can we do better? Yeah, sure we can.
Councillor Greer. Oh, sorry, Director, did you want to quickly respond further?
Yes, I guess also worthy noting it, the actual design and budgets constrained by the grant funds that were allocated as well, so that comes into consideration. So we build to a budget to a degree, trying to make sure that functionality is addressed, while also trying to balance form. But I understand the points, and we certainly can look at that in the briefing notes.
Well, yeah, personally would be supportive of spending some more money and getting something the community could be proud of in that location. Just on the budget, 300K does seem like a lot of money for a modular drop-in. Can I request a little bit more detail in how that number was arrived at in the briefing notes? Thanks. And the need for a 65K contingency if it is a modular design.
Yes, we can include that in the briefing notes to have a bit of a cost breakdown.
Thank you, that's all.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mesamon. I have a question. Through the report, it focuses a lot on how the modular design is of benefit and that it's semi-fixed or could easily be moved to another site. I'm just trying to understand why we're focusing on the possibility of moving it later, or rather than finding the perfect spot for it now. Is there something I've missed in terms of it not being a permanent structure in that position?
Through the chair, I can have a bit of a crack on answering that. One of the challenges that we have in addressing our needs for our reserves is that we're not quite across where our future needs are going to be in 10 to 15 years, particularly in respect to the rate of development and the consequential increase on population. So there could suddenly be a demand lessen for that particular area, maybe increase in another. Having a modular unit then gives us the ability to potentially be flexible in our service delivery. That's probably the best answer.
Thank you. And just the decision between the location 1 or location 2, and sorry if I missed it in the notes, but what would the impact be on the trees that are kind of in that section? Is there a difference of how many trees would have to go between location 1 or location 2? I think location 2 on that pocket, nothing. Excellent. Great.
No trees.
Checking.
Sarah will kill
Just
me.
checking. When I walked through there today, I was like, where will this fit? That's good to check. Thank you.
Almost gave me a heart attack there, Councillor Greer. No trees are going. No trees are going. Okay, are there any further questions in relation to this item?
Can I ask one more? Sorry, Mayor. The northeast corner of the park, are there existing services there that would save us tens of thousands of dollars that are otherwise allocated to new sewer and electrical connections?
Yes, there is, but that refers to the sewer pump. I have to refer to my project manager behind me there. But yeah, there was obviously the existing toilet there. Again, public commentary around where that initial location was, and I believe that was demolished for a reason. Community weren't happy with that location. So, Peter, if you can provide some more background.
I can probably provide some better background. The previous installation was subject to some antisocial behaviour, ongoing antisocial behaviour because of its location and lack of surveillance. We believe that the location of the new facility, given its proximity to both playground, BD Park, will be better surveilled and therefore a better outcome for the community.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any more questions in relation to this item? Okay, so I actually need to go to 5.4, review of policy, construction management plans. So Councillor Wolf, you had some questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question on this one. I'm wondering what happens if developers fail to maintain a complaints register, please?
Through you, Mayor Simon, I guess the complaints management register forming part of the CMP, we would work with the applicant or the developer to make sure that that was included if they didn't. Developments that would require a CMP, that would be required as a condition through the planning approval. So if a CMP was lodged without that, we wouldn't sign off on that condition until it was included.
Any further questions? I've got questions in relation to that. Okay, so my questions are that I note that the need to protect pathways is implied, but it's not explicit. And one of the concerns I've got is the number of pathways which are made unusable for extended periods of time. Is there any suggestion that we are going to prohibit the shutting down of pathways? And if so, but if we are allowing it, is that there's going to be clear time limits on how long, on when that, and how long they can be unusable?
Through you, Mayor Simon, we can provide that through the briefing notes.
Okay, the other information I would like is in relation to cranes. I recall a number of cranes that, particularly when Pindon went bust, were left hanging over residents' houses for actually, I think it was a few years down on Wright Street. Can I ask, is there any capacity to prohibit cranes being left over adjoining properties? Because it is actually quite a serious safety issue. And I know I wouldn't like to have to look up, see a crane just above my house almost indefinitely.
Mayor Simon will provide that through the briefing notes too.
Okay, and this is also, it's about the issue of the use of road reserves. Again, you've talked about being able to use the reserves, the road reserves, subject to getting permits. What sort of timeframes are we talking about being made available for people to be able to do that?
Mayor Simon will provide that through the briefing notes as well.
Councillor Wallace, you had some questions.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question on, I guess we've got the enhanced enviro strategy on the agenda tonight as well. We talk a lot about waste material recovery. Do you think it's worthwhile including a requirement for SEMPs to include consideration of waste material and potentially even some targets for reuse? I think it'd be a good opportunity to kind of like implement some of the targets of the EES down into on the ground stuff.
Mayor Simon will provide that thought through the briefing notes.
Another one is parking provisions for workers. I don't have a suggested clause or anything, but does admin think it'd be worthwhile to include some requirements or discussion of that?
Through Mayor Simon, so under clause 3, which relates to city property, there is discussion. Clause 3.4, which talks about the use of restricted on-street parking bays isn't to occur unless a construction parking permit has been issued by the city.
Do you think we should include any requirements for dilapidation surveys adjacent work sites?
Through Mayor Zaman, we've investigated that issue around dilapidation reports. There isn't really a legislative head of power to require that. The Building Act, which would apply irrespective of the city's policy, identifies that any works to be undertaken in a way that doesn't have adverse impacts on adjoining properties. So we haven't included it as a particular policy standard, but in the supporting information sheet, we would provide some information that in most instances it would be helpful for builders to undertake a dilapidation report of the neighbouring properties in their own interest.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good, I think. And then just a couple of questions on whether it's worthwhile including notification periods for out-of-hours works and construction parking permits. I know those are kind of like separate processes that occur outside of authoring of the SAMP, but if it's worthwhile just including for reinforcement in our SAMP guidelines that there are notification periods that do need to be adhered to when applying for either of those items.
Mesamon, we can investigate through that through the briefing notes. I'd suggest that would be something that would probably live in the supporting guidelines rather than the standards, but we can consider that.
Cool, thank you.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Okay, so then moving on to 6.4, response to petition Green Street. Councillor LaFontaine, you had some questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. In regard to recommendation number 3, the 5-year implementation road safety plan, I only found in the report one mention of a Ellesmere and Eaton Street intersection that was dangerous. Could we have more information in the briefing notes on other untreated black spot locations that exist within the precinct area that's proposed?
Through the chair, yes, we can include that in the briefing notes.
Do you know how many currently exist within the area?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, mightn't be that many pre-approved black spot projects around the area. We've recently done a few low-cost treatments on Federation, Eucla, Tasman, Brady. Main Roads is doing the Scarborough Beach Road roundabout. But there certainly is some low-cost urban treatments that Main Roads fully fund. And this study would go part way in informing where the actual locations of them are. And we would talk to Main Roads to potentially fully fund some of them projects.
And these would be, we would be prioritising the most severe intersections and the most injury prone.
Sure, yes, that's correct. So pre-approved black spot projects or projects that have the most number of crashes and severity of crashes to have priority. But we just applied for one on Ellesmere and Eaton Street, and we're unsuccessful on that project on its own merit. So the study would inform a greater number of potential or projects that could become black spot projects, and the low cost urban treatment funding go somewhat to treat them before they become an issue.
Are these black spot locations ones that have been black spot in the past and are not currently within the 5-year period categorised as black spot?
Through the chair, yes. So through the crash maps, there's pre-approved black spot projects, and they're mapped through the crash map, and I can put them in the briefing notes. There's other areas that I think you need like 5 crashes. So if they're slightly under, which Eaton and Ellesmere Street was, they don't meet the criteria, so we don't get the funding. But we can apply through the low-cost urban treatment that doesn't have requirements on crashes or severity of accidents. It's just it's warrant scored, so the harder warrant scoring, the likelier or the low-cost treatment funding can apply.
All right, thank you very much.
Through the chair, it's fair to say that we don't really have an understanding of what the impact is going to be from the main roads works on Green Street on our local streets, and also still trying to get an understanding of the impacts as a consequence of the smart freeways interventions that impact Brady Street and Power Street. So the study hopefully will be picking up some of that. Well, hopefully needs to pick up what that is. So current environment's not necessarily going to be reflective post the works. So I think that's important to take into consideration.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question in relation to recommendation clause 5. Talks about consulting on the option of permanently slowing speeds to 40 k's. Could you provide some information about what that process looks like? My understanding is that the reason it's not already 40 k's is because of the classification of the road. So would applying for that to become a 40 k zone, would that require reclassification, or is there some sort of exemption process?
Through the chair, so it is a local distributor road, and you're correct, it wasn't slowed because of the hierarchy of the road. Main roads are looking at local distributor on case-by-case basis, subject to, there's two things, so community support for that, and the item talks to that. And the second thing would be council support or adopting the road to be slowed as well. That's the two main things before main roads would slow a local distributor road. Needs to happen.
Thank you. And I suppose not related to this particular item, but I wonder if there might be a piece of work that can be done in the future about identifying other local distributor roads that would be more appropriate for 40 k speed limit.
Very topical through the chair. With the Perth Inner City Group looking at implementing 40-kilometre residential streets across the collective area, one of the talking points has been 40 k's an hour for local distributors, and there's a mixed view around whether they should be automatically granted 40 k's or whether it should be a case by case. Main Roads has indicated support for that. So we would look at post implementation for the Perth Inner City Group area. We will also look at and have an analysis of our local distributors and put recommendations to council.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Mayor Zaman. Just a question in relation to recommendation number 1. As I understand it, the goal of the petition was to have these measures in place during the project and the road closures, and that now we've kind of hit near the completion of that project. But do we have any more information on administration's understanding of the date the project will be completed, or? Yeah.
Through the chair, yes, Main Roads have indicated before the end of the financial year the project will be completed, and the road's not closed anymore. It's under traffic management, but it's functioning as a roundabout currently.
Excellent, thank you. And just a question on recommendation 2. We will request administration to continue with the low traffic calming initiatives such as the electronic speed radar signs. Did we get any feedback from the community on that going ahead, and just before we support it continuing?
Through the chair, yes, very positive feedback. Community want them made permanent, but they're temporary, so they will be moved every 6 months.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Councillor Howlett.
Thank you. Partly linked to that, was wondering whether there'd been any evaluation of the impact that those signs have had beyond community feedback.
Through the chair, yes, the team's downloading data this week, and we're analysing what we can get from the smiley faces. So it's positive, yeah. And also to note the trial we did in Angove Fitzgerald Street, that's concluded now, and we're getting information back on that as well.
Councillor Castle.
Sorry, just to add to that, I wonder, is there other information that is available from other areas where those signs are used. I know they're used in quite a number of places, including Kings Park. I would imagine that there's other results of reports that might indicate whether they are a useful tool. Personally, I find them very motivating.
There a response to that?
Yes, through the chair.
Not that they're very motivating.
Yeah. No, we do talk to a number of councils, City of Perth being one, and yes, they use them. So does the town of Cambridge. They've got them in their Safe Active Street at the moment. So yeah, we do share that sort of data with our technical officers and engineers. Yep.
Through the chair, probably a good thing to have is an analysis of what a permanent installation might cost versus temporary installations, and that probably gives us an understanding of and the infrastructure requirements to install them, and that probably gives us a better informed perspective of that matter.
Are there any other questions in relation to this item? Okay, I'm going to move on. So moving on, the next item is event sponsorship 25-26. Councillor Warner has declared a financial interest and so is leaving. Okay, so Councillor Wolf, you had some questions about this.
I did. Thank you, Mayor. I had 3 questions about specific events and very happy for any of the responses to come through the briefing notes. The first was around the Rainbow Picnic and Festival of Culture. The community feedback that I heard was that those events were absolutely amazing and people wanted to see them not only continue on into the future, but also to grow. So one example would be with the Rainbow Picnic growing into the future with things like potentially food trucks rather than just a BYO picnic. So my question was, with the $45,000 allocated to those 2 events, is that sort of to continue on as we had, or is there room to grow within that budget?
Through you, Mazamon, the budget is to increase the event proportionally and realistically within the capacity that we've got. But yes, it's definitely more than we spent last year. We have also looked into grant funding opportunities, particularly for the Rainbow Picnic. So there could be capacity to increase the funding that way as well. In terms of food trucks, we deliberately didn't put food trucks there in respect to the kiosk owner. So that was a specific decision, and to keep it more of a picnic rather than a foodie kind of event.
That makes sense. Thank you. The next one was on the Miles Garner's Starlight Spectacular Halloween event. So note the comments in the report around some of the strategic alignment issues in the application there. But I was just wondering about the comment that the event lacked broader community appeal. And I just wondered sort of how this event would differ when compared to other events that are aimed at families and children, like the Fairy Tales in the Park that was approved, for example.
Through you, Mazamon, we might provide that response in the briefing note.
Thank you. And the last one was around the Providores markets. I think we've had some previous discussions as a group around the fact that we had one absolutely outstanding market event this year, but there were potentially some issues in delivering on the series of events that had been planned. So I was just wondering if those issues had been resolved, noting the increased funding allocation for next year being proposed.
To use Mazamon, we are, again, as discussed last week, going on the application of the event and the event organiser, their self-stated capacity. They did have an illness in the family last year, which they said prevented them from running the number of events that they had initially planned. So they have assured us that they have capacity to do it this year.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just ask a follow-up question about that. Given that the funding, the grant funding that's actually being recommended is be delivered in kind, if they were not to deliver all of the series of events, that would just proportionally reduce the amount of funding that was provided. Is that correct?
Through you, Mazamon, are we still talking about Providores?
Sorry.
That sometimes depends. So usually, yes, we would reduce the funding based on the number of events. But if they were to approach us as they did this year and say that they wanted to put on a bigger event than they initially planned and that they wanted to use a little bit more of the budget for one big event versus two smaller events, then we would assess that based on their revised proposal. I can elaborate on that a little bit more in the briefing notes.
Thank you, that'd be great. And I suppose it would be interesting to know how you reassess the community benefit when there are fewer but bigger events compared to 4 smaller events.
Okay, are there any more questions in relation to this item? Okay, would you be able to ask Councillor Warner to rejoin us if that's okay? Okay, so the next item is 7.5, differential rates 25, 26. Apart from myself, does anyone have any questions in relation to this item? Okay, I'm just going to ask as part of the briefing notes, could you please supply what it might look like if we increased the residential vacant property by 25% rather than 9%? And draft an amendment to that effect. Thank you, but I'd also like to get an idea of what that looks like. Thank you, Very. Is that possible?
You, Ms. Mull, will include in the briefing notes and draft an amendment as well.
Thank you. Is anyone else? Councillor Wallace.
Sorry, I did have a question. Thank you, Mayor. I was just wondering if we could get, if the information is readily available, like what a median rates notice would be inserted into the table that kind of like lists comparable local governments and shows rate in the dollar residential levy based on a GRV of 20k, just like what a median household would be paying in those suburbs.
Through you, Ms. Mull, there is some further information further down the report. We've included a couple of residential examples as well. So, but if you'd like anything further, just let me know. We can include that as well.
I'll have a look at that. Thanks, Reece.
Are there any further questions in relation to this item? Okay, so that brings us to the 8.3 information bulletin. Councillor Wallace, you had some questions?
Yes, not about anything that's specifically on the bulletin this month, but I think in a workshop 8 weeks ago, we talked about potentially getting some snaps and solve stats inserted into the info bulletin going forwards. I was hoping for an update on the progress of that request.
You, Mazamon. We can certainly add stats, just general, how many we've received, how many are being dealt with, how many are open.
Yeah, I was kind of interested in like the character of the complaints as well. So, you know, if we're getting 100 Woolworths shopping trolley complaints, if it's generally around, I don't know, yeah, whatever it's around.
Sure, yeah. So the different categories and how many we're getting for each category, and then
yeah, what have you got? What else shows up on the dashboard? What can we ask for?
Graffiti, and then there's some
we don't
graffiti
deal with shopping trolleys,
okay.
But we pass them on to the companies. But yeah, many graffiti, damage to signs. I can give you we can provide the list of all the categories. It's easy to report on that, so we can provide that.
Cool, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Are there no further questions in relation to this item? In that case, I want to thank the public who attended and the live stream viewers, and I close the meeting at 7:28. So Wendy, could you please stop the live stream? Thank you.